For more than 30 years, Sydney Brooks Simpson lived quietly, moving through life beneath a long shadow few could truly understand. As the daughter of O.J. Simpson and Nicole Brown Simpson, she watched the world turn her family's sorrow into headlines, whispers, and an unending public spectacle. While millions focused on what was called the trial of the century, Sydney carried a memory no courtroom decision could ever soften. It was not fame or fortune that shaped her path. It was a single night in June of 1994, a night that altered everything. When Los Angeles police arrived at 875 South Bundy Drive in Brentwood, the world outside saw only another breaking news story. Inside that quiet home, two small children slept upstairs, unaware of the chaos unfolding just beyond their dreams. One of them was 8-year-old Sydney Brooks Simpson. To the public, the address became a scene of investigation. To Sydney, it became the place where her life split into a before and an after. As the inquiry grew into one of the most watched legal events in modern history, the streets filled with cameras and reporters. Every whisper, every movement, every detail was captured and analyzed. Her father, once celebrated as a sports hero, now stood at the center of a national storm. When the white Ford Bronco traveled down the freeway, the world held its breath. Sydney, sheltered by relatives, was too young to understand the full weight of what was happening, yet old enough to sense the unease in every adult voice around her. What few ever paused to consider was what the children themselves had heard that night. Many years later, in a private statement from 2024, Sydney reflected on the fears she remembered. Heavy footsteps, a sudden crash, a single scream, then a stillness that felt overwhelming. She described seeing a large male figure near the backyard doorway. At 8, she could not make sense of it, yet she would later say, "I knew it from that day on." When investigators approached her in 1994, relatives and attorneys stepped in to protect her, shielding her from questions no child should face. Official notes simply stated that the children were physically unharmed. What they could not record was how deeply silence itself settled into their lives. Later school records from Brentwood Elementary revealed traces of the burden she carried: periods of panic, sudden anxiety, a strong fear of loud sounds. Sydney avoided sitting near doors, grew distressed at the echo of footsteps, and was eventually moved to a smaller private school in hopes of giving her a gentler environment. At 9 years old, Sydney became part of history without ever choosing to be. When the trial began in January of 1995, the world waited for answers, for clarity, for something that resembled closure. For Sydney, it marked the beginning of a long, quiet journey through sorrow. During early therapy sessions, she drew 2 houses, one bright and welcoming, the other shadowed, with soft red marks near its door. Her therapist understood these drawings as reflections of deep emotional strain. The family protected her as fiercely as they could. They turned away interviews, avoided cameras, and refused every request for public appearances. The Browns knew that even a single photograph could turn the children into symbols in a story far larger than them. On October 3, 1995, O.J. Simpson was acquitted. Millions watched the verdict unfold live. Some expressed relief, others disappointment. For Sydney, there was only uncertainty. The man she once knew as her father was returning to his life, while her mother was gone in a way she could not fully comprehend. That contrast stayed with her in the years to come. By late 1996, Child Services reports described recurring nightmares and long stretches of isolation. Teachers remembered her as polite, yet quiet, cautious around unfamiliar faces. Though the media frenzy eventually faded for the public, the echo of it remained within her. The late 1990s became years marked by custody arrangements, counseling, and a gentle wish to remain unseen. The Browns kept the children far from cameras, questions, and the lingering weight of the Rockingham home that had once been familiar to them. Every decision was measured, each step taken with the intention of offering Sydney and her brother a gentler world. Yet even with all their care, no one could fully quiet the memories that lived within the children. Sydney spoke rarely, even among relatives. A social worker noted in 1996 that she often avoided discussing her parents. When asked about her mother, she would simply say she smiled a lot. When asked about her father, she withdrew into silence. Behind closed doors, her quietness became something deeper, a kind of shield her mind built to protect itself. By the year 2000, the Browns made a significant choice. They moved Sydney and Justin to Florida, hoping distance would give them space to breathe. There were no cameras waiting on sidewalks there, no debates on television, no endless reminders of the past. In Florida, Sydney had the faint possibility of being just another student. She attended Gulliver Preparatory High School from 2000 to 2003. Her teacher saw a capable young woman, though reserved, careful not to share much about her personal life. She avoided attention, especially the kind that came with her last name. School administrators later recalled that the family requested her identity remain private during events. When the yearbook committee approached her, she asked for her photograph to be left out entirely. Majoring in sociology, with a focus on criminology and patterns of harmful behavior, she chose a field shaped by questions that had followed her since childhood. Her thesis examined the emotional effects experienced by children whose families had faced severe turmoil. She never mentioned her own history, yet the work carried an unmistakable sense of lived understanding. Professors admired her careful research, her empathy, and the quiet steadiness she maintained behind her reserved manner. In many ways, she was studying her own life without ever acknowledging it aloud. College offered her a brief sense of freedom. She formed a small circle of friends, though her boundaries remained firm. She did not speak about family, avoided questions about her past, and kept a wide distance from anything resembling public attention. Privacy was not simply a preference, it was a way of protecting herself. After graduating in 2008, Sydney took a position at a nonprofit in Atlanta that supported children living through domestic hardship. For 14 months, she worked gently and consistently as a case coordinator, helping young people whose struggles mirrored her own in ways they could not have known. Supervisors described her as reserved, deeply compassionate, and unwavering in her commitment to the work.
During this time, Sydney began writing private notes, quiet reflections on memories she had kept locked away for many years. Some of these later appeared in legal filings, revealing her efforts to reconcile who her father had been to the world with the person she remembered from that night in Brentwood. One of her notes read, "I was taught to love him, but I remember being afraid of his voice." By 2010, Sydney had grown into a woman intent on preserving her privacy. She avoided interviews, declined participation in films or programs about her family, and often changed her address to stay out of public reach. In an age of constant digital exposure, she created her own form of shelter. No social media, no public profile, no trail to follow. By the early 2010s, Sydney Brooks Simpson had quietly built the calm life she longed for, settling in St. Petersburg, Florida. She remained far from Los Angeles, far from headlines, and far from the echoes of her past. While her father served time in Nevada for a separate legal matter, she focused on creating her own stability, purchasing and restoring homes, and eventually running a small real estate business under her full name, choosing work that allowed her to stay grounded and unseen. This became her way of slowly reclaiming her life, shaping an identity that belonged solely to her. In 2012, she entered a relationship with Stuart Alexander Lee, a British national, who later described her as gentle, though often distant, carrying memories that surfaced in quiet moments. She kept one firm boundary. Her father's name was never to be mentioned. When O.J. Simpson returned home on parole in 2017, Sydney chose silence. No appearances, no statements, no attempts to reconnect. 2 years later, in 2019, she agreed to meet him briefly. The conversation was restrained, shaped more by what remained unsaid than by the words exchanged. He handed her a copy of If I Did It and told her, "You should read this. You'll understand me better." In a later private note, Sydney wrote, "He didn't have to explain anything. From the way he looked at me, I knew that was our final meeting." She walked away that day and ended all contact. Soon after, she formally declined any inheritance connected to him, a quiet and resolute step toward the independence she had sought for so long. On April 10, 2024, news from Las Vegas announced that James O.J. Simpson had passed away at age 76 due to long-term medical complications. The family released a brief, composed message on social media, asking for privacy. Behind that calm statement, Sydney had already reached her own sense of closure years earlier. Hospital notes and witness accounts described their final meeting as quiet, without any attempt at reconciliation. O.J. lay weak, drifting in and out of awareness. Standing at the foot of his bed, Sydney told an aide, "I didn't come to forgive him. I came to let him know I still remember him." According to the same witness, he grew emotional, but said nothing. Her last words were soft, yet unmistakably clear. "I am no longer your daughter." After his passing, Sydney's decisions were measured and purposeful. She did not attend the service. Her name did not appear on official documents as next of kin. She was not included in the estate, nor named in the will. Court records in Clark County later revealed that she had signed a formal disclaimer 3 months earlier, stating, "I disclaim all rights to any portion of the estate, whether directly or indirectly, of O.J. Simpson." It was a firm and deliberate step, a daughter formally closing the final chapter of a long and difficult story. But it was never about finances. It was about values, about choosing what she would carry with her into the years ahead. In a statement released by her law firm in May of 2024, Sydney wrote 6 brief paragraphs. The final line carried a quiet strength. "I retained a right to choose what memory will survive in my life. I choose to keep my mother." She carried her truth quietly for many years, and in time, she found a way to claim it for herself. When she finally chose to speak, it was not through cameras or headlines. Sydney's voice emerged instead through the measured, careful language of legal documents. No interviews, no dramatic statements. Her truth appeared in signed refusals, formal withdrawals, and her deliberate absence from every public moment. Each step she took, every choice not to appear, not to engage, not to claim, became its own kind of declaration. She had seen, she had understood, and she refused to live beneath the weight of her father's legacy. In the months following O.J.'s passing, media outlets attempted to reach her, yet none succeeded. Her representatives offered a single, steady response. "Miss Simpson will not participate in any public discussions related to Mr. Simpson's passing." But her silence was already meaningful. The truth was carried not in spoken words, but in what she chose to walk away from. Internal estate documents from May of 2024 confirmed that Sydney had declined all financial ties connected to her father, including older shared holdings and trust accounts established decades earlier. Her decision left no room for interpretation. In a private addendum, she wrote that she could not accept anything associated with the events that had shaped her childhood. Whether the assets were legally hers or not, she believed accepting them would go against her principles. This was not simply a refusal of inheritance. It was an act of personal freedom. One signed document turned her long silence into something unmistakably clear. For the first time since 1994, she felt a sense of release, not from the past itself, but from the weight she had carried for so long. From that point forward, Sydney Brooks Simpson quietly continued the life she had already begun to rebuild. By 2020, she had become the majority owner and CEO of JMI, a real estate company based in St. Petersburg, Florida. Each property she managed, each contract she signed, bore her full legal name. No initials, no alternate identities, no attempts to conceal or reshape who she was. It was her way of taking ownership of a life she had never been permitted to live freely. Financial reports from 2021 showed her company reaching a net worth of more than $3 million, operating steadily and without debt.
She moved with intention, relying on attorneys and independent accountants to manage the business while keeping her life firmly out of public view. Stability, privacy, and control. Three things she rarely experienced as a child became the foundation of her adulthood. Beyond her work, Sydney married a private partner in 2020 and welcomed her first child in 2021. She chose her daughter's name as a quiet tribute to her mother, honoring the memory that had guided her through the most difficult years. Friends described her as calm, protective of her boundaries, and deeply committed to her family. She also continued to support others through anonymous donations, funding programs for children without parents and individuals recovering from domestic turmoil. There were no interviews, no online presence, no public appearances, only the quiet record of efforts that reflected the world she had built, far from the one that had shaped her early life. Sydney Simpson's life reminds us that even after the fiercest storms, there are quieter paths where healing can take root. She never searched for spotlight or recognition. What she sought was a gentler life, shaped not by the noise around her, but by the choices she made with steady resolve. Her journey invites a simple reflection. In her place, would any of us find the courage to step beyond the past and reclaim our own lives with such quiet strength? Share your thoughts below. If this story resonated with you, feel free to leave a like, add a comment, and subscribe for more stories told in this gentle light. See you in the next story.